Okay, I'm calling to order the January 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Historic Preservation and Design Standards Advisory Committee. If there's anybody watching online, we encourage you to show up in person one day, so there's actually someone in the room during one of these meetings. I'm Monica Poss, the chair, and I am going to ask everybody to introduce themselves.
I'm Walter Winslet. I'm an at-large representative. We have a building on Main Street, 218 Main Street.
Victoria Allen, member at large. I have a business on Main Street also.
Michelle Nelson, member at large. I have two businesses on Main Street.
Emily Broad Barons, president of the Smithville Heritage Society.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead to item number 2. Does anyone have any announcements, proclamations, or awards? No one speaking up. Moving on to item 3. I think it has been proposed that for our replacement for the Smithville Area Chamber of Commerce, which used to be Erica, who has left, that Victoria step in and fill that role. Is that accurate?
I haven't been approached, but I'm willing to do that.
Are you on the board of the chamber?
I am.
Okay. And you're willing to do that? Okay.
Yes.
Let's vote on the matter. Who's in favor of Victoria filling the chamber role on the board? Unanimous. It passes. So now we have a new spot at large to fill. So hello out there in the audience. If there's anybody who has an interest or experience with historic preservation or design standards or art or history, anything that might be relevant to our committee, I encourage you to reach out to Jill Struby or Jose and apply for a spot. Thank you. Item number 4. We need to approve the October 16th, 2024 minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Anyone have any comments or corrections on the minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes from the October 16th, 2024 meeting.
Anyone seconding? All in favor of approving the minutes? Say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 5, discussion and possible action on setting dates for the HPDS informational videos with Jose Rivera. So for those of you who may not be aware of what we're talking about, the various members of the committee all put together little write-ups on different aspects of historic preservation, such as preservation versus restoration versus rehabilitation. Why is historic preservation important? What is the history, a brief history of Smithville? And rather than, originally we were going to write them up and print them on little door hangers and hang them up and down Main Street and the other spots that are in the historic preservation district itself, so to whom it's relevant. Although I think it's relevant to all of us, but not all of our buildings have to abide by the HPDS standards. So we decided that Jose actually came up with the idea of doing videos instead of write-ups. Might actually get more views. People might enjoy them more. Could be fun to do. So Jose, it's your show.
Hello, committee. Good afternoon. At this point, what we would like, like Monica was saying, it was another way to be a little more engaging with the information with the community. It was something that will last a little longer. It'll be something that we can share around the community as well. So it's, and we have the equipment that the city and the library has been graceful and nice to put together the money to help us out get that really, really good equipment that we currently have. So let's put it to good use to share the information in the community. And at this point, what we need is to set dates for the recordings or the filming, which based on the information, it will take around 20 minutes to 30, depending how comfortable you feel with the teleprompter. It's not too hard. We just need to put on the schedule the dates and the time.
Jose, do they all have to be done? I'm assuming you mean 20 minutes-ish for each video segment?
Correct.
Not all together.
Yeah, in my experience, even people that have never had any experience like reading stuff like that in front of camera, takes them a few tries, and then overall maximum 20 something minutes.
How many video segments do we need to shoot in total?
I think last time when we talked about it, I think there were like 8
8 of them?
topics, I believe.
Okay, and there are supposed to be 9 people on the committee, so I think the thought was that each person would do one.
Correct. Correct.
All right. I know we have a spot open. Do we actually have 2 spots open at the moment? No, we just have the 1 spot. All
Mhm.
right, so that leaves 8 of us. What if you send out some date and times to all of us, and then we can each respond individually and sign up for one of those spots?
Perfect. I can do that.
Does that work for everybody else?
Yes, that works for me.
Does anyone
It works for me.
Does anyone have particular time constraints? For example, they can't do it before 5 o'clock or after 5 o'clock?
Mhm.
After 5 is best for me, actually.
Okay. I will have multiple times, like different days and different times, like considering after and before 5. If that works and you picked a day that works for you.
Thank you.
My question is, how are we gonna do this with the new members that weren't here when it was first assigned to people?
Yeah, we're just going to give you one. And if if no one's here to object to doing a video, then that's just tough luck for them. They're stuck with it. And Jose, when you send that email out with time and date invitations or opportunities, will you also send a list of the particular topics that need to be covered? I know many of us here wrote 1 or 2 of those topics, and so it might be easier for us to speak on our own.
Mhm.
And then the other folks can decide which one they want to try for.
Perfect. Again, like the write-up should be what we talked about. It has to be somewhat short. It cannot be like 10 minutes long because we'll lose the person. That's why it was easier to break it in different topics where they can be filmed within maybe 5 minutes total. So that's an average of like 2 pages or less than that, which is ideal for keeping people's attention.
Okay, so if somebody needs to speak on a topic that was longer as a write-up, then will they also be responsible for condensing it to what they think the most important information is?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
So do the videos come with like pictures as the person speaking? I mean, is it more visual?
It depends, like every topic will be different, and then we can figure out depending on what the topic is, we can either do some B-rolls that go in between while you're talking. Let's say we're talking about sidewalks or facades, we can do some like B-rolls that go in between while you're discussing it. So it'll depend on the topic.
That may keep more people interested in
Mhm.
stated if you had visual.
Correct.
The historical part of that would.
And you can even like on your write-up, like let's say, yeah, you're like, I would like to have this kind of image or this kind of video that lets me kind of prepare and have everything set up before.
And Michelle, Leroy offered to work with Jose on finding appropriate old pictures in Smithville for different segments.
I find stuff for Leroy all the time.
Right.
Maybe we should give you that job.
Although that might be a little bit, we might have a problem there because one, we're working on a new computer system. And two, they're completely rearranging the archives and I can't even get into the building.
Well, we actually have, I have a whole folder of pictures that we put together when we were actually developing this model. So I have probably 25 of them.
Perfect.
Any public comment? Crickets out in the audience. All right. Item number 6, discussion and possible action on approving revisions to, or recommending to council approval on revisions to the mural guidelines. For some context, we had written up some mural guidelines long ago. We revised them recently to allow for some administrative approval rather than all mural changes needing to come before our committee and then before city council. For example, someone fairly recently submitted, they had the big Texas flag mural and just wanted to put Smithville, Texas on it. And something that simple doesn't necessarily need to come before the committee. So we approved that things like that could go through administrative approval and didn't need to come here. Well, Leroy wisely pointed out that someone could make a series of small changes like that and ultimately end up with a mural that's substantially different from what they began with. And so we needed to put some additional guidelines or additional language in place to prevent that sort of thing. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the changes, and do I have any comments or questions on it?
I think the change, like you said, the change could be made or should be made because somebody could, like you pointed out, eventually come council meeting after council meeting and just want to change. And within a few years, the whole building could be covered.
Well, do I hear a motion?
I have one question. So the Texas flag is on my building, right? And it says, same materials are used to create the change to the mural. How do I find out what materials they used? The people that did the flag.
Well, Victoria, I think that refers to like, is it going to be paint or is it going to be, ceramic or is it going to be,
Okay.
Or if it was purple paint, use purple paint and not pink glitter glue?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's
That's it. Thank you.
That's what I would expect. Is anyone interpreting that differently? You should have been a lawyer, Victoria. All right, any motion?
Yes, I move that we accept the changes.
I second.
All in favor of accepting the proposed changes to the mural guidelines, raise your hand. All right. Passes unanimously as a recommendation to council. And I believe that was the last item, unless anyone would like to propose a topic for future meetings. Well, I would, because I'm a rabble rouser. I'd like to discuss the possibility of recommending to council that we add some teeth to our neighborhood historic designation. A certain portion of a map on Smithville shows our historic district. And in reality, that doesn't mean much except that you live within those map boundaries. And I know practically everyone who runs for office in this town says, oh, everybody says it's so important to keep the character of our town. And we all feel that way. It's wonderful and we don't want to lose its historic and charming character. And I believe that over time, a lot of our beautiful houses could be torn down and super contemporary or other kinds of homes could be put in that diminish and erode our character. So do I have any opposition to putting that as an item of discussion on our next meeting?
What exactly are you hoping with the council?
I think we can discuss different ways of approaching it. You know, Bastrop, well, we have a set of design standards for the historic district, right, and our older buildings. And Bastrop has put together a set of guidelines for different neighborhood types, including its downtown historic area. And we don't necessarily need to do anything as extensive as they've done, but consider some limitations on the types of changes that could be made to buildings of a certain era. We could consider historic, and I'm not in favor necessarily of any of these items. These are just examples or thoughts at the moment, but it'd be great if we could all come with thoughts. You know, a limitation on the paint palette. If someone wants to do new construction, some set of architectural guidelines so that the new construction is cohesive with the character of the historic neighborhoods and the historic homes around it. So those sorts of things. And, you know, we could spend a ton of money that the city does not have on doing an architectural audit. Is that what it's called? But I just point out the city doesn't really have that money. So we need to think of maybe other ways to achieve preservation of the historic character of what we call the historic district in Smithville. So I'd just like to open this up as an item for discussion at a future meeting. And also, you know, our committee has no teeth, really. We're just a recommendation body to council. So ultimately, it'd be council and our city manager who would make decisions about it, but we can present recommendations and our own thoughts.
I don't understand how that's different from what we're doing now unless you add teeth to it, which I'm not sure.
So we have the historic commercial district over which
Right.
this committee, you know, oversees changes to.
Yeah.
Mostly our downtown, sorry, I keep turning that off, our downtown area. But this whole neighborhood up to Mills Street, I think, is considered the historic district, not the historic commercial district, and not subject to the historic preservation guidelines as they exist
Right.
today. And I'm suggesting that we put on the agenda in the future discussing adding some guidelines for the historic residential area.
Does P and Z not handle any of that?
You know, I think
What do you know,
we
Robert?
we are the historic preservation people, whether it's downtown or not. And so P and Z could start the ball. We could start the ball. It doesn't matter, I think, where it starts. It matters where it ends up.
Robert Tamble, City Manager. Okay, so there were guidelines put into place for the residential historic district. No barn dominiums, connexes, manufactured home, mobile homes. That went into effect about 3 or 4 years ago. So we do have some controls. What's of larger interest to me is, you know, back when Vernon Richards was here, they did an effort to identify what homes qualify in the commercial and residential district. And at the time, it could be 87, 90, I don't remember the exact date, but a home qualified if you were over 50 years old on the National Historic Registry. So it's been 30 years since that activity was done. So I am certain that our historic district boundaries have expanded. But that is also a large effort that was done by a handful of people back when Vernon was here. So there are larger questions to answer. Do you even want to go down that road?
Yeah, that is the first question.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be worthy of the committee discussing it to decide what the answer to that very first question is.
Yeah, because the buildings that didn't qualify will now. So I can clearly see an expansion of the commercial historic district or the CBD area that we've identified in the guidelines that we've published. But yeah, open for discussion, certainly. So.
Is anyone opposed to putting discussing this as a possibility on a future agenda item?
No, thank you, Robert, for clarifying. No, we should always keep our minds open, and the times are changing. I'm up for that.
Jose, will you make a note that that needs to go on a future agenda, say for our next meeting? And if anyone has thoughts about the matter, anyone knows what other municipalities have done, then please bring your thoughts, including you, Robert.
Why, thank you. One more thing I wanted to add to this is that it's a fine line when you try to tell somebody what color they can or can't paint their home. Kind of different in the downtown business area, but people get really, no, government's not going to tell me what I can do with my property.
Well, there's a concept of separating idea generation from idea evaluation.
Yep.
And I think our first conversation could really be more around idea generation and whether it's even a topic worth pursuing, but that you make a very good point that we have property rights issues to consider as well.
Okay, cool.
Any other proposed topics for future agendas?
You saw the struggle in Austin that happens around some of their historic areas like Travis Heights, the Allendale area. A lot of the people coming in from out of other states into Texas are bringing in their style of homes that they had in their states, which is totally different looking compared to what they had and the struggles of what you see Austin going through. But I think somewhere they caved because you go into the Travis Heights area, you see the flat roof houses, you don't see the old Victorians anymore. I mean, you can drive around our city and see the houses that are falling apart that eventually will just be a lot or somebody's going to come in and do that. And they're right around the area here. So I think it's a good idea, but I think style of houses do change over time. And we might be stuck into where we were when all these houses were built, but they're going to change because the people that will buy houses are coming from other areas are going to want a different style as the modern house does change. So I think you set the parameters based on what you're going to be looking at and how far do you go, to that. So I know when we addressed this area 4 or 5 years ago, I remember meeting at the big hall where we talked about the preservation of what we were doing with our city and the style of homes, what's efficient, what's not efficient, and compared to why we built homes a certain way here back then. But I think, are we talking about going to that extreme of saying what kind of style house could be built if something is torn down? What would be replaced? Staying within those controls. Because it may limit who comes into our town.
I don't think we know what we're talking about or how extensive we would want this to be if we would want to do something at all. But the conversation has to begin somewhere. And those are good questions and maybe bring your thoughts on it.
Okay, yeah, we do some research on what Austin did.
Yeah, you look at Hyde Park and the beautiful character of Hyde Park has been destroyed, and we certainly wouldn't want, well, I don't know what we want, but part of that's density, right? Yeah. I need a motion to adjourn.
Excuse me, Monica, do we need a future date, set a date or not?
We need quarterly meetings, so if this is January, February, March, April, May, April. April would be our next meeting. And we are typically the second Wednesday or third Wednesday. I don't recall how we set that. Do you, Robert? Third Wednesday of the month? Does that fall on a holiday?
April 6th.
Don't they all?
Ooh, it's the day after tax day.
Okay.
We'll all
so-
be very depressed.
Yeah. All right, then how about we set April 16th as our next meeting date unless we get applications for COAs before that and there are issues that, it's wise to address sooner.
Can I make one comment? And it's nothing to do with this meeting. I don't know if you all know this, but Michelle Nelson just retired after 42 years with the IRS. And I think that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And this is also Michelle's first meeting, I believe. So welcome to the committee. All right, now, any motions?
Move that we adjourn this meeting.
I second.
All in favor? We are adjourned.